What sounds completely ridiculous but actually happened. My husband, 35M, and I, 32F, were married for 7 years. He lived next door, and we just clicked. It was like a fairy tale. One thing I had always thought that made our marriage so strong was our friendship with each other and our trust in one another. Somehow, my husband found out that his friend, Jeff, had been baby trapped. Basically, Jeff's wife stopped taking the pill and fell pregnant a few months into their relationship. She only came clean after the wedding. Jeff came from a very conservative family, which his wife knew, and so he felt obligated to marry her after the pregnancy. Unfortunately, he also felt obligated to stay regardless of the clearly messed up dynamic because he felt that he had made a vow and would stick by his wife and child. My husband, for some reason, had been really rattled by this. I was 4 months pregnant with our first child, and my husband had asked me if I was trying to baby trap him. At first, I laughed because I honestly thought it was a joke. He was dead serious and doubled down, so I told him that we had already been married for 7 years, and a baby was not going to trap him any more than he already was. My husband did not like that answer and said that there was no time limit on baby trapping, and that my intentions were clearly not pure given how I was acting as if his concerns were a joke. He said he had trusted me in the past, but me laughing in his face gave him no reason to trust me now. I did not really know what he wanted or how I was meant to respond, and I said we should talk about this in the morning. When I woke up, my husband was gone. On my phone, there was a nasty text from his brother saying that I had forced my husband into this pregnancy, despite it having been a decision we made together. My husband was not responding to any calls or texts and I was so confused on what to do next. I called my best friend and she came over with some chocolate. She was absolutely furious when she heard about what had happened. She called her husband to the house after I had gotten everything out of my system. He was a family lawyer, and he said that he would happily represent me if I wanted to go through with a divorce. This man was a saint and would draw up divorce papers on the following Monday. My mother-in-law showed up with my husband in the car not long after my best friend's husband arrived, and she practically dragged him to the door. She said that he had showed up at their house last night saying that he was certain that I was using the baby to trap him. Fortunately, she was a smart woman and absolutely tore him a new one before dragging him to the house to apologize. My worm of a husband did not look me in the eye the entire time, but he said that he was scared about becoming a dad and projected his fears onto me. He said he wasn't sure if he was ready for that kind of commitment, but he would step up if he needed to. I called him a coward and told him that he should stay with his parents until I was ready to talk to him. I didn't want to say anything about the divorce papers because I didn't know what his reaction would be, but he would find out soon enough. I also showed my mother-in-law the text from my brother-in-law, and her face was red like a tomato. I didn't know what was going to happen to him from there, but I was sure it was going to be bad. Later on, I went to get a scan done at the doctor's with my mother-in-law. The baby was happy and healthy. I finally found out the gender. I was having a little girl. I was over the moon. My mother-in-law was such a gem and was so touched that I had included her in the scan. She was very excited to be a granny. She organized a family lunch a couple of days after the scan. I was a little reluctant, but I knew that she had good intentions and wouldn't do anything to make matters worse. When I arrived, her husband, my husband, and his brother were already there. It was quite awkward until she asked if anyone had anything to say. My brother-in-law spoke up first and apologized for his awful text, saying that he was swept up in the moment and wanted to support his brother. I explained how hurtful it had been to receive such a nasty and vindictive message, and that he knew as well as anyone that my husband and I had been trying for almost a year. He hung his head down in shame and mumbled something I couldn't make sense of. That was pretty much the last I heard out of him for the afternoon. Next, my mother-in-law looked hard at my husband, but he actively avoided anyone's eyes. Eventually, she spoke up and announced that my husband would no longer be welcome to stay in their house. She said that she was ashamed to have her son behave the way that he has, and that she would prefer to make space for her granddaughter rather than have some lowlife hanging around. My husband had opened up his mouth to say something earlier, but his eyes lit up when she said granddaughter. My husband had always wanted a girl, and he was suddenly in tears saying that he was so pleased to hear the gender. My husband suddenly wanted to touch my belly and asked if he could come home and paint the nursery. I told him no. And that he was not welcome and that he had destroyed any trust I had in him. I told him that if I took him back, I would be worried that he would disappear at any kind of big news, and that I couldn't have someone at my side who balked at the first chance. He asked me if I was telling him it was over, and I point-blank told him that I had engaged a lawyer. My husband was kind of frantic, but I felt so calm, like someone had put a blanket over me in the situation. Normally I am a big crier, but I felt so removed from everything. My husband said that it wasn't fair. He had shown a little bit of panic and suddenly I was throwing away our life and denying him his daughter. His dad reminded him that this is the same baby he felt trapped by no more than 2 weeks ago. My husband said it was a mistake and he was stressed, but his mom asked him how he thought I felt. She asked him to imagine being so vulnerable and giving up your body to grow a family, and suddenly the one person you trust is accusing you of terrible things. He said it was a mistake and he projected his fears onto me. I told my husband that I felt so broken when he left because I had all these dreams of a beautiful family which came crashing down in an instant. My husband said that he wanted those things with me and he wanted our baby girl, but that he let the panic overwhelm him. I told him that wasn't a good enough excuse for what he put me through, and that he certainly didn't seem panicked when his mom had to drag him to my door to apologize. He didn't have much of an answer other than to say that he was ready now and wanted our girl. In all of this, in all the times he told me he wanted me and our baby, he never once apologized properly. After a very, very long discussion, the lunch wrapped up, and my mother-in-law stood by what she had said about my husband not being welcome. He asked again if he could come home with me, and I told him that it was my house, and it was going to be a safe space for me. He was not welcome there. As far as I know, he went to sleep at some random hotel. Finally, he was served divorce papers at work later that week. My best friend's husband drafted them earlier, but I wanted to wait until I had thought it all through. I received a few missed calls and crying voicemails asking if I was really throwing away our family, but I did not respond. He even took a crying selfie sitting in his car, which my bestie laughed at quite a bit. My mother-in-law called me when she heard, and told me that I was making the right decision. She said she never wanted my marriage to end this way or for her son to be so callous, but she said she is here for my baby and me, and that we will always be family. She even tried to apologize on my husband's behalf, but I told her that was not necessary. At the end of the day, his actions are his to own.